The act of piracy is as old as sea trade itself, with the first recorded pirates being the mysterious sea peoples of the late Bronze Age, who attacked areas along the coast of the Middle East and Egypt. Piracy also doesn't seem to be dying out anytime soon, with modern pirates operating in places including the Indian Ocean, the Strait of Malacca, and the Gulf of Guinea. Still, when someone says pirate to you, it is more than likely you will conjure up the image of a dashing and daring Jack Sparrow type. During the late 17th and early 18th centuries, men and a few women created such an interesting culture on the high seas that it still fascinates us today. But how exactly did the piratical society work? Were pirates all selfish vagabonds, or did they stick to a strict code of brotherhood? We will answer these questions and more as we explore the bonds and relationships of the pirates who operated during the Golden Age of Piracy. During the 16th century, there was a surge in sea traffic between Europe and the Americas. This surge in trade ships presented an opportunity for many to escape the drudgery and poverty of life on land and live out on the ocean, taking what they needed from passing ships. The European monarchs soon saw piracy as a way of damaging their enemies without risking all-out warfare, and they engaged mariners to commit acts of piracy in the name of the crown. These legal pirates were known as privateers. Many people who turned to piracy had been sailors, and life aboard merchant or navy vessels was less than ideal. Conditions were terrible, and the men were overworked and underpaid. They lived in cramped conditions with little food and often suffered from disease and starvation. In contrast to life on legitimate vessels, pirate life was democratic and just. One rule aboard pirate ships was every man has a vote in affairs of moment. Every man's right to a voice included electing the captain based on a vote, determining where to sail to and where to attack. Although each ship had a captain, decisions were a group affair, and each person aboard had an equal voice in the running of the vessel and which missions they would undertake. This autonomy contrasted greatly with the lawful vessels, whose captain was more of a dictator as they wielded absolute power on their ship. The elected captain was usually kept in check by another elected official, the quartermaster. The quartermaster was in charge of the distribution of loot and was the keeper of law and order aboard the ship. He worked directly below the captain, acting as an intermediary between the captain and the crew. Pirates could vote out a leader as well as vote in a captain. Any captain deemed to have made a poor judgment or seen as abusive to the crew could be deposed. Crews had diplomatic talks in relation to how the ship was run. Every member of the crew had as much say as anyone else, which caused merchant captains to believe that there was no government or order aboard pirate ships. Life aboard ship was hazardous, even without the violent conflict that was often a part of piratical life. To combat this, some pirates developed rudimentary insurance schemes in which each ship had a pool of money set aside for their injured shipmates. Each ship placed a value on different injuries. For example, the loss of a right arm could result in a payout of 600 pieces of coin, whereas the loss of a left arm would only get you 500. Sailors aboard merchant ships would lose their jobs and be discharged, whereas injured pirates often remained part of the crew. It seems likely that the stereotypical image of a pirate with a peg leg or a hook for a hand came from the fact that pirates had a healthcare system and would not abandon crew members because they had suffered an injury. The pirates adopted what could be described as a socialist democracy, and pirate codes often contained great detail regarding the distribution of wealth. Plunder was distributed according to duty and skill, with the highest ranks of captain and quartermaster receiving somewhere between 1.5 and 2 shares. Other positions of authority got 1.25 shares, with all the regular crew members receiving 1 share. While this was not entirely equal, the pirate crews deemed it more than fair compared to the pay structures aboard legitimate vessels. Historian Marcus Rediker cites the pirate pay structure as one of the most egalitarian plans for the disposition of resources to be found anywhere in the early 18th century. While pirates willingly embraced and even pursued fearsome reputations, this was mainly down to theatrics rather than outright violence. Their fearsome flags and grisly appearance were intended to frighten their targets into submission, eliminating the need for violent conflict. Due to their frightening and disorderly reputations, many captives that were brought aboard pirate ships expressed surprise at what greeted them once on the vessel. Matt William Spooner writes about one captive's description of life on a pirate ship. At sea, they perform their duties with a great deal of order, better even than on the ships of the Dutch East India Company. The pirates take a good deal of pride in doing things right. Pirate society was structured in such a way that no one man would ever be able to gain absolute power. It was also devoid of a great deal of discrimination, and anyone from any race, creed, nationality, or social class could become part of a pirate crew. While women were thought to be unlucky aboard ocean vessels, there are still instances of women joining pirate crews, sometimes by disguising their gender and other times by proving their ferocity. While we know of about 40 female pirates that operated during the Golden Age of Piracy, historian Joe Stanley estimates that about 1% of pirates at this time were women. Clearly, strong bonds of friendship and brotherhood were forged aboard these tight-knit floating communities. Occasionally, these fraternal bonds were made official by the practice of matelotage. Matelotage was the practice of two pirates entering into a formal economic partnership in which one party would inherit the other's wealth after they died. This agreement usually had the addendum that the surviving partner would make provisions for the friends and family of the deceased who lived on shore. In most cases, matelotage was akin to a will, but it could also refer to a more romantic partnership. Professor Barry Richard Bugg argues that some of these relationships were similar to the ancient Greek customs of a young male forming a sexual relationship with an older and more affluent man. During Bugg's research, he uncovered the story of a privateer captain named George Shelvocke, who promoted the cabin boy to the position of first mate. He argues that this speedy advancement was due to an intimate relationship between Shelvocke and the young man. There are many recorded stories of the practice of matelotage, although many of them are ambiguous. In the records of Calendar of State Papers, John Swan is registered as a great consort of Captain Culliford's, who lives with him. Another story comes from the ship of Black Bart. After the infamous captain stabbed a crew member who insulted him, the crewman's matelot, a man named Jones, confronted Bart, who stabbed him as well. Jones fought back and gave the captain a sound beating, for which he was sentenced to 2 lashes from every member of the crew. The practice of same-sex partnerships amongst pirates was so prevalent that in 1645, the governor of Tortuga requested the French government send 2,000 prostitutes to the colony, with the hope that the women would dissuade the pirates from committing to matelotage. Unfortunately, the sexually liberated pirates then began forming thruples, marrying the prostitutes and bringing them into the already existing relationship with their matelot. Ultimately, historians feel that homosexuality was no more prominent in the pirate world than in the population at large. However, it seems it was more acceptable in the surprisingly liberal pirate society. The fact that platonic friends, as well as lovers, could enter into matelotage appears to demonstrate that there was no shame in homosexual behavior within the pirate world, and that the bonds between crewmates were such that they respected each other's life choices with little to no judgment. Although they spent a lot of time at sea, many pirates had families on land. Daphne Giannakopoulos began researching the familial ties of pirates after hearing a story in which the captain of a ship sailed to Rhode Island in order to visit his mother and sisters. She investigated the lives of around 80 married pirates and how they were able to keep their marital ties even while being at sea for the majority of the time. It seems that a pirate's sense of community went beyond the ship that they sailed on, as those engaged in matelot vowed to deliver part of the fallen pirate's fortune to their friends and family. It suggests that the men would be aware of the personal ties of their crewmates, as well as where to deliver the inheritance to, should the situation arise. The camaraderie between pirates was such that it was very rare that they would attack each other, even those from different crews. Pirates had certain strongholds or safe havens, such as Tortuga, and any infighting would have threatened their already precarious way of life. Although battles between pirate ships did occur, it wasn't frequent. In fact, it was more common for pirate ships to work together, especially when facing a foe with superior weapons. A common depiction of piratical infighting is mutiny, and while this might be a popular trope in pirate fiction, the truth is that with all the bureaucracy in place aboard the ship, they simply didn't need to, although it did happen at times. Even if a captain was particularly disliked, they were not usually killed. Typically, they were dropped off at a pirate republic, along with any crew members who were particularly loyal to the disposed captain. One pirate captain who had been voted out of office was given a sloop that had been part of the fleet and allowed to continue to pirate, along with his 16 supporters. Stories of pirates betraying each other are often popularized, such as the antics of the infamous Blackbeard. However, it is essential to note that the pirates who obtained the most fame and notoriety were usually the least successful at piracy. The most successful floating piratical societies weren't that concerned with material wealth, and most simply wished to continue their free lives at sea. Rather than hunting for riches, successful pirates plundered ships for food and clothing, taking what they needed to sustain their lives on the waves. Despite their reputation for lawlessness and anarchy, the bonds of brotherhood between pirates were forged through diplomacy and order, lending credence to the Roman proverb that there is honor among thieves. Pirates respected each other's bid for freedom and pledged fraternal bonds to those who were close to them, honoring their wishes in death. Although this golden age of piracy only lasted for 70 years, their intriguing and often contradictory lives continue to fascinate us today. How would you like to get a deeper understanding of history, impress your friends, and predict the future more accurately based on past events? If this sounds like something you might be into, then check out the brand new Captivating History Book Club by clicking the first link in the description. To learn more about the Golden Age of Piracy, check out our book, The Golden Age of Piracy, a captivating guide to the role of pirates in maritime history during the early modern period, including stories of Anne Bonny, Sir Francis Drake, and William Kidd. It's available as an ebook, paperback, and audiobook. If you found the video captivating, please hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this.